I want you to imagine something with me. You're in a vast, spacious room with your closest friends, in a fight of your life with Tiamat, the five-headed queen of dragons. Grasping your rapier, you have the ability to strike the final blow and banish her to Avernus, from whence she came. You start enacting the intricate footwork necessary for such a strike, when suddenly you stumble, tripping over your own feet. You fall on your face and find yourself praying that you will live to fight another day. Some of you who know me will be aware that one of my many passions is the fantasy role-playing game known as Dungeons and Dragons. Once every week or so I will meet up with my friends and we will delve deep into our imagination and escape into an exciting campaign. With our dice in hand and character sheets ready, we will channel our energy into the lives of these beloved characters. Whether that be Corfel Beravan, the half-elf bard, pacifist and incredibly charismatic, but, like so many who play the game, hopeless around women. Or possibly Ilmonius, the pious and devoted cleric who, like many, gives in to his temptations and gradually partakes in more and more morally dubious actions. That is the beautiful thing about D&D. The characters we create are incredibly human and realistic. They have deep and sympathetic backstories, flaws, bonds and personality traits, skills and proficiencies just like us. You see, the thing is that while this game is a method of escapism, the appeal is that life itself is often like D&D. There are rules and constants which help us navigate this complex world, but with a single bad roll of the dice, months of planning go out the window. You might be very comfortable around people, but when your boss asks you to run that important presentation, nerves overtake you, and then it all seems for nothing. Equally, you might have that big holiday planned, which makes the entire year seem worthwhile, and suddenly a global pandemic strikes and your plans are scrapped. Whether it is fault of your own, or situations out of control, things can never quite seem to go as planned. However, there is one member of the group whom I have not yet mentioned, and that is the Dungeon Master. They have a responsibility of running the game, managing the rules, controlling with which characters you will interact, interacting with the players themselves on a personal level, and, depending on how much pity they have for you, perhaps even pulling back on the consequences when you do inevitably roll that natural one. A great DM will have created a detailed and intricate world themselves, and will have every piece of lore, geography, and the stats for the creatures within memorized. The DM is arguably the most important member of the group. To some extent, God is like the Dungeon Master, and yet he is so much greater than that. For, unlike us, he knows how the dice will fall. Proverbs 16:33 says, "The lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord." As Christians, we believe that, like the DM, God created this entire universe. He set the laws of nature, knows every event that has and will ever happen, and chooses to interact with us. What we may call an unlucky situation is actually a specific and carefully planned out part of God's great design. A design which will ultimately result in good. One of the best examples of this is the story of Joseph. Going from a comfortable life as his father's favourite son, Joseph was attacked and sold into slavery by his very brothers. While a slave, he was accused of a crime which he did not commit, and thrown into prison for several years. God raised him up eventually, and put him in service of Pharaoh, after having given him the interpretation of Pharaoh's dream and thus helped him predict the future. The plan he enacted on behalf of God saved the entirety of Egypt and the surrounding nations from 7 years of famine. That included his brothers. Genesis 45:5 says, "And now, do not be distressed, and do not be angry with yourselves for sending me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you." God turned an incredibly dark and difficult situation into something unspeakably good. We are living in a very confusing time. Aside from the sudden global pandemic and the social and economic consequences of that, we have been witnessing major social justice movements, political confusion with the actual as well as potential changes in leadership here and overseas, growing environmental concerns, and so much more. It is easy to get sucked into this whirlpool of despair and to lose total faith in life itself. Yet, however dark and confusing these current times may seem, whatever you're going through, you may not know how these situations will turn out. You may not know how the dice will fall. But God does. All we need to do is trust in Him.